Welcome to the deep dive.
Great to be here.
So today we're digging into something pretty fascinating, I think. It's about how our emotions, our feelings, actually connect with how we learn about politics.
Yeah, it's a really interesting intersection.
You shared this huge study, right? A massive review looking at tons of research on this.
That's right. It's a systematic review and meta-analysis.
And our mission today, basically, is to unpack what all that research tells us, like which emotions actually help us learn politics and maybe which ones get in the way.
Exactly. The source itself, it's called The Associations Between Discrete Emotions and Political Learning, a cross-disciplinary systematic review and meta-analysis. Bit of a mouthful.
Yeah, it just rolls off the tongue.
It was published in the Educational Psychology Review, July 2024, so pretty recent.
Okay.
And the key thing is, it's not just one study. It synthesizes findings from 66 different publications. Yeah, covering over 100,000 people. It looks at how specific feelings relate to things like paying attention to politics, looking for info, talking about it, and, what people actually know.
Right. And for our listeners, folks interested in how knowledge works, this offers some maybe surprising angles. It's easy to think learning politics is all logic.
Yeah, pure reason, yeah. Read the facts, know the stuff.
Exactly. But this research digs into that often overlooked emotional side. So we're going to look at which emotions get studied most, the overall trends, and some of the nuances the researchers found.
Sounds good.
Okay, so let's dive right in. Where has most of the research actually focused? Which emotions?
Well, what's really striking is how skewed the focus has been. This big review found most studies zeroed in on what they term activating emotions.
Activating, like the emotions that get you fired up.
Pretty much, yeah, the ones that give you a jolt. So on the negative side, anxiety was a really big one, about 32% of the effect sizes they analyzed, and anger was up there too, around 19%.
Okay, anxiety and anger. Makes sense. You see a lot of that around politics.
Definitely. And on the positive side, the main one studied was enthusiasm. That accounted for about 15%.
Enthusiasm. So feeling excited or engaged about it.
Exactly.
So it seems like the research likes the high energy emotions, whether they're, negative like anger or positive like enthusiasm. What about the other end of the spectrum, like calmer feelings?
Yeah, that's a really critical point the review makes. There's a huge gap there.
A gap.
Positive deactivating emotions, think feeling content, maybe peaceful about things, they're hardly studied at all.
Huh?
And the same goes for negative deactivating ones, like feeling sad or maybe just apathetic about politics. They're largely missing from the picture.
Wow. So we know a bit about being anxious or angry or enthusiastic, but almost nothing about being, say, politically bummed out or just satisfied.
Pretty much. It's a major blind spot. We just don't have much data on how those lower energy states affect political learning.
That really makes you wonder, doesn't it? Like, does feeling content just mean you check out? Or does it have some other effect?
We don't know yet based on this. So sticking with those activating emotions they did study, what did the meta-analysis find overall? Do they actually help learning?
Right. What's the big picture?
The overall finding was small positive associations for these activating emotions. That includes both the negative ones, especially anger, and the positive ones like enthusiasm, at least in certain study types.
Small positive associations. Okay, can you break that down a bit? What does small mean here?
Sure. They used the statistic R, the correlation coefficient. The values they found were typically between 0.05 and 0.13.
Okay, R equals 0.5 to 0.13. That sounds tiny.
It is pretty small in statistical terms, yeah. It means there's a slight tendency for the emotion and learning to go up together, but it's definitely not a strong causal link. It suggests these energizing emotions, positive or negative, might play some role, maybe nudge us towards learning.
So, not a magic bullet, but maybe a little push. Feeling angry might make you slightly more likely to click that article.
That seems to be the implication, yeah. A gentle nudge rather than a big shove.
Okay. And that was for the activating ones. What about those understudied negative deactivating ones, like sadness? Did they find anything there, despite the lack of studies?
Well, interestingly, for the few studies that did look at them, the meta-analysis found basically no association, no significant link between negative deactivating emotions and political learning.
None at all.
Nope. Based on current research, feeling down or passive doesn't seem to clearly help or hinder political learning. But again, huge caveat, for very few studies looked at this.
Right. Need more data. But it almost feels intuitive. If you're feeling really apathetic, researching policy details is probably the last thing on your mind.
It does track, doesn't it? Motivation seems key. Now, the researchers didn't just report the numbers, they tried to frame it using a specific theory, right?
Yeah, tell us about that framework.
They used something called the control value theory of achievement emotions.
Control value theory. Okay.
Yeah, it originally comes from educational psychology, thinking about emotions in school. The basic idea is that positive activating emotions like enjoyment or enthusiasm should boost learning because they feel good and you feel in control.
Okay, that makes sense. More engagement.
Right. And conversely, the theory predicts that negative deactivating emotions like hopelessness or boredom should hinder learning. They feel bad, maybe you feel out of control, so you disengage.
So the theory predicts enthusiasm, good for learning, sadness, bad for learning. How did the meta-analysis results actually stack up against that?
It was a bit mixed, actually.
Oh,
The theory got some support for the positive activating emotions like enthusiasm. Remember those small positive links found in the cross-sectional survey-type studies?
right. REO 0.10 for enthusiasm.
Exactly. That fits the theory. But for the negative deactivating emotions, the meta-analysis found no significant link. The theory predicted they should hinder learning, but the data didn't really show that.
So the theory didn't quite capture everything, at least in the political context.
It seems that way. Or perhaps we just don't have enough research on those deactivating emotions yet. The theory might need some adjustment when applied specifically to politics.
Okay, interesting. So let's dig into those specific emotions a bit more. Enthusiasm showed that small link in surveys. What else did they find there?
Well, that finding for enthusiasm, the R of 0.10, came from cross-sectional studies. Basically, surveys asking people how enthusiastic they felt and testing their knowledge at roughly the same time.
Right, a snapshot in time.
Exactly. But here's a key twist. In the experimental studies, where researchers actively trying to make people feel enthusiastic about something political,
Yeah.
the link to learning wasn't significant. It didn't seem to work in that controlled setting.
Whoa, okay. That's a big difference. Why would that be? Why does it show up in surveys but not experiments?
That's a great question. It could be a few things. Maybe enthusiasm that develops naturally over time because you're genuinely interested is different from a temporary feeling induced in a lab.
Like, real enthusiasm builds knowledge slowly, but a quick lab boost doesn't.
Possibly. Or it could be the other way around. Maybe people who already know a lot then feel more enthusiastic. The surveys can't easily tell us which causes which. Experiments try to, but maybe they just weren't long or powerful enough.
That makes sense. It's hard to bottle genuine long-term enthusiasm. Okay, let's switch gears to anger. That was another big one they studied. What did the analysis show about anger and learning?
This was definitely one of the more maybe counterintuitive findings for some.
Yeah.
They found a small positive correlation between anger and political learning in both the survey studies and the experimental ones.
Both. So feeling angry seems linked to learning more, even when they induce anger in an experiment.
That's what the data suggests, yeah. The 5 values were 0.06, 0.06 in cross-sectional, and 0.1, 1.1 in experiments. Small, but consistently positive.
Wow. Anger helping learning. We usually think of anger as making people, irrational or closed-minded.
Right, it goes against that green. But the researchers actually mentioned this concept of the democratic value of anger.
Democratic value of anger. Okay.
The idea is that anger can act as a signal. It tells you something's wrong, maybe unjust, and it needs attention. This can apparently increase cognitive alertness and motivate you to seek information to understand why you're angry or what can be done.
So it's like an alarm bell that also makes you want to read the instruction manual.
Kind of, yeah. Now, they also caution this doesn't mean the learning is always good. Anger might lead you to seek out biased information just to confirm your outrage.
Okay. Confirmation bias fuel.
Could be. But that initial spark, that motivation to engage and learn something, seems potentially linked to anger.
Fascinating. Okay. One more major emotion, anxiety. Lots of political anxiety out there. Some theories suggest anxiety should make us hyper-aware and learn more.
Yep.
What did this huge review find?
This is another area where the findings might challenge some common assumptions.
How so?
Despite those theories suggesting anxiety should prompt learning by making us monitor threats, this meta-analysis didn't find a significant overall link between anxiety and learning in the survey studies. Their value was tiny, just 0.03.
0.03. So basically negligible in the surveys.
Pretty much. In the experimental studies, they found a small positive association, R equals 0.06, but it wasn't statistically significant overall.
So feeling anxious about politics doesn't necessarily translate into knowing more about politics based on this large body of work.
It doesn't seem to be a strong, consistent driver, no. While maybe for some individuals or in specific situations, anxiety could prompt info seeking.
Like trying to reduce the anxiety by understanding it.
Right. But averaged across all these studies, the effect just wasn't clearly there. The relationship seems weaker or maybe more complex than some theories proposed.
Okay, that's really shifted my perspective on a few things. Now, beyond the specific emotions, did the review talk about limitations in the research field itself, like blind spots,
Oh, absolutely. They highlighted some really significant gaps.
such as?
Well, first, a massive geographical bias. Get this. 71% of the studies were conducted in the USA.
71%. Wow, so mostly an American picture.
Very much so. Research from non-Western countries where political systems and emotional expression can be really different is seriously lacking. That's a huge question mark for how generalizable these findings are.
Definitely. What works or feels relevant in the U.S. might be totally different elsewhere. What are their gaps?
Age was another big one. Most studies looked at adults, around 53%, or university students, about 32%.
Okay, mostly older individuals.
Yeah. Adolescents are really underrepresented. And that's a critical time for political socialization, for forming your views and habits. We know very little about how emotions shape political learning during those teenage years.
That feels like a really big missed opportunity, especially for anyone thinking about civic education.
Speaking of which, that was another gap they pointed out.
Civic education.
The role of emotions within formal schooling, like in actual civics classes, is largely overlooked in this research area. How do kids' feelings in the classroom affect what they learn about government or politics? We don't really know.
Huh. So we teach civics, but don't really study the emotional side of how that learning happens in schools.
Seems that way, yeah. It's another significant blind spot, especially for educators trying to design effective programs.
Okay, so it sounds like we have some pieces of the puzzle, particularly about activating emotions in U.S. adults, but huge areas are still pretty fuzzy.
Yeah.
Given what they did find, though, what are the main takeaways or implications, and where should research go next?
Well, the main implication is that activating emotions, even negative ones like anger, seem potentially linked to learning, possibly by boosting attention or motivation.
Right, that nudge effect.
Yeah. So for people trying to engage the public, like educators or communicators, understanding this emotional dimension might be important.
But didn't you say the effects were small?
Yes, very important to remember. The effects are small. And the researchers strongly caution about potential downsides.
Like what?
Like, anger might boost learning a tiny bit, but other research links it to decreased trust. Anxiety might sometimes motivate, but it's also been linked to believing misinformation. So trying to intentionally provoke these feelings could easily backfire.
Yeah, that sounds like a dangerous game. You don't want to make everyone angry just hoping they'll read more if it also makes them distrustful or fall for fake news.
Exactly. It's a very delicate balance.
So what's the recommendation for future research then?
They really push for broadening the scope. First, study those neglected emotions, the contentment, the sadness, the apathy. We need to know what role they play.
Fill in those gaps.
Right. Second, look at more diverse populations, different countries, different age groups, especially adolescents.
Get outside the U.S. college student bubble.
Precisely. And third, they emphasize needing to look at the quality of learning. Is learning driven by anger the same as learning driven by curiosity or enthusiasm? Is it deep understanding or just picking up surface-level talking points?
That's a crucial question. Not just if people learn, but how well and what they learn, depending on the emotion.
Exactly. Those are the kinds of nuanced questions we need to tackle next.
This has been really insightful. It definitely paints a more complicated picture than just emotions good or emotions bad for learning politics. So just to wrap up for everyone listening, what are the absolute key points to take away from this deep dive?
Okay, so the big picture from this massive review is activating emotions like enthusiasm and even anger seem to have small positive links to political learning. They might give you a little nudge.
Small links, keyword small.
Yes. Meanwhile, negative deactivating emotions like sadness don't show much connection based on current limited research and the role of anxiety. It seems less straightforward or powerful as a driver of learning than some theories might suggest.
Okay.
And crucially, there are big gaps in what we know we need more research outside the U.S. on younger people and on those quieter emotions.
Got it. And it really leaves you thinking, for everyone listening, think about your own experience. Have you ever felt a specific emotion really push you to learn more about a political issue or maybe shut you down?
Mm-hmm.
And then there's that bigger question. What if educators or campaigns start trying to deliberately trigger certain emotions to boost engagement or learning? What are the ethics of that? What are the risks?
Yeah, lots to chew on there.
It's clearly a complex, evolving field with plenty more layers to uncover about how our hearts and heads work together when it comes to understanding the political world around us.
Definitely.
Thanks for walking us through that complex research. And thanks everyone for joining us on this deep dive.